Thank you very much, comrades, for being here this evening, for giving me the opportunity here to speak in front of all of you. It's a very somber and painful day today for all of us. It's the 80th anniversary of the liberation of Auschwitz. That's why we are stood today outside the Polish embassy. We're here to mourn and to grieve the atrocity of the Nazi Holocaust. We're here to condemn all the perpetrators and beneficiaries of this crime against humanity. And we're also here to protest the desecration of the memory of the exterminated by allowing a war criminal like Netanyahu to visit Auschwitz on this day to disturb the souls of our ancestors. A man with an arrest warrant from the International Criminal Court for war crimes and crimes against humanity during the genocidal war in Gaza, on top of the decades-long settler colonization of Palestine, which is a structure of colonialism which is inherently genocidal. If I have the opportunity later or time after other people have spoken, I will share a poem that I wrote a few years ago about my family history and experiences of anti-Semitism in the shadows of the Holocaust. But I first wanted to share some reflections that I've had this week on delivering Holocaust Memorial assemblies at my school in Newham. I soon realised, particularly with the Year 7s and the 8s when I was delivering this assembly, that many of them were hearing about the Holocaust for the first time. For many of them it was the first time that they had seen images of the death marches, of concentration camps and of gas chambers. And it's incredibly hard and difficult to communicate the gravity, the barbarity of what we were seeing. How could this happen was the first question that we were asking ourselves. The Holocaust Memorial Trust has a 10 stages of genocide model, where extermination and denial are the last stages. They're preceded by organisation and preparation, which in turn are preceded by stages of classification, discrimination, and dehumanisation. And what I wanted to bring across in these assemblies with the kids was that it doesn't start with the gas chamber. It doesn't start with the concentration camp. It starts with the othering, the them and us, of Jews, of Roma and Sinti communities, of queer and disabled people, of trade unionists and communists. It starts in the newspaper columns representing people, human beings, as spiders, as cockroaches, as vermin. It starts with the pogroms, it starts in the ghetto. And that's why I was standing up in our assembly halls today, why I'm standing here now, because for me, if the pain and the generational trauma of the Holocaust have taught me anything, it's that rather than being a singular or exceptional trauma and pain, it's that the industrial dehumanization and extermination of human beings which culminated in the Nazi Holocaust was a practice refined over centuries through the genocides of indigenous, First Nation and Aboriginal peoples in the settler colonies, the genocidal trafficking of enslaved Africans, the German genocides of Herero and Nama peoples in Namibia, the Belgian Holocaust of 10 million Congolese people. Colonialism has always been genocidal. It was when fascism was invited home back to Europe that it culminated in the Nazi Holocaust. For me, there's no point in Holocaust education if it isn't teaching our young people to recognise the signs of fascism early. So that never again truly means never again for anyone. So that's why I also shared the stories not only of the resistance of oppressed peoples in the Warsaw Ghetto uprising, but also of the Kindertransport of the White Rose resistance by students, desperate and inspiring examples of bystanders who refuse to be made into accomplices or beneficiaries. History doesn't repeat itself, but it rhymes. And we've seen the rhymes of Rwanda, of Bosnia, Darfur, and now Gaza. And it reminds us that we all have a responsibility to stand up and to speak out. The same newspapers that demonize and dehumanize migrants and asylum seekers today were supporting Hitler and the black shirts in the 1930s. The same companies that sold Zyklon B gas and weapons to the Nazis are now profiting from Israel's settler colonial economy. The governments that arm Israel's genocide today refused to take in Jewish refugees fleeing Europe, but gratefully received Nazis fleeing accountability for their crimes.
But now they pretend they've always been pro-Israel,
Exactly.
pro-Jewish and everything, yeah.
If Holocaust education doesn't lead us unequivocally to stand up to authoritarianism and fascism, it will end up being a tool of fascism, a tool used to discipline those speaking up against genocides today, against the genocide of the Palestinians. I did not need to make this connection explicit to my students. They know. I honour and respect the maturity and empathy that they showed me while I shared personal stories about the Nazi Holocaust and how it shapes Jewish history and present, including my own and that of my family. And I commend the clarity and courage of my students to make connections to the injustices that they see happening in the world today, not just in Palestine, but also in Sudan, in the Congo, in Kashmir. A genocidal war criminal was invited to visit a monument to genocide today. It is a shanda, a disgrace, and an insult to the memory of the 6 million Jews, 500,000 Roma and Sinti people, and the hundreds of thousands more who were murdered in the Holocaust. But what the furnaces could never erase is our legacy of resistance and liberation. The Bundists, the Jewish revolutionaries and trade unionists, the artists and musicians, those of us with a steadfast commitment to always stand with the oppressed and never with the oppressor, the Jews who feel the pulse of history in our veins through an unconditional and unwavering solidarity with the persecuted and exterminated, because we know what it means to be persecuted and exterminated. We too were strangers, we too were slaves in the land of Egypt, is what Torah reminds us. Poland, speaking directly to the embassy now, you are in contravention of the Rome Statute, the founding treaty of the International Criminal Court. You have made agreements to enforce sentences and orders imposed by the courts. If Netanyahu sets foot in Poland, as if he sets foot here in the UK, he should immediately be arrested. Yes. The greatest justice to the memories of those exterminated by the Holocaust is to ensure that every war criminal, every perpetrator and beneficiary of genocide is brought to justice in The Hague. And our responsibility is to build a world of life, abundance and love where the crimes of genocide are unthinkable and impossible. Thank you very much, comrades.